Part 1. Introduction. Hello, my name is Amy, and today I will be instructing you on how to write a story using the hybrid multi-perspective writing style, or hybrid style, for short, using a story written in the style. I'll then read an extract from the same story and finish off the video by briefly going over some novel series written in the hybrid style. In total, there are 31 parts and 25 rules in the analysis section of this video that I will be talking about. To teach you how to use hybrid style, I will be using 3 documents, which includes: the first is Book 1 of Let's Take This Seriously, The Story of the Spirit. Eagles, which is a novel written in the hybrid style and was created by Lester Williams, Jr., also known as L.R. the Writer. The second is the Hybrid Multi-Perspective Writing Guidebook. And the third is the Hybrid Book Analysis Video Examples. The links to the guidebook and novel will be available in the video's description down below in a section titled Main Video Content. All books that will be shown in this video have been written by L.R. the Writer. For those of you who wish to learn more about the author, you can use the links in the description down below that are under the section titled L.R. the Writer's Links. The first link will take you to the article by the Lion's Pride Media Group titled Poet to Fantasy Novelist Lester Williams, Jr. The second link will take you to a copy of A Writer's Perspective, Kingsworth's Space Adventures Volume 1. The third link will take you to the video titled L.R. the Writer Introduction, Video, Ordinary People Season 4, Episode 7. So now we will focus on the novel, starting with the title page. As you can see, this book's title is broken up into 3 sections. First is the franchise Let's Take This Seriously, which references one of the main ideas of the series, which is learning to take a sport such as soccer seriously, regardless of why an athlete plays. The second is the series title The Story of the Spirit Eagles, which reflects the soccer team the story is centered around. And finally, the third section is title, which is Book 1, the pilot episode, which displays that this is the beginning of the series. Next, we have the info on the drawing itself, including the artist behind it, as well as the character it's referencing, which is Diamond Beatrice Smith, also known as Queen Bee, who is one of the main characters of the story. As a side note, this series is an ensemble story, meaning there is no protagonist. Part 2. Branding. So, before we get into the story and the hybrid style, the next thing to note about this novel series is that it is an L.R. Productions original work, and the mascots for this brand are Kingsworth Lester, Lightborn the Seventh, and his AI assistant Takahashi Obsidian, who are also the main characters of the book series of A Writer's Perspective, Kingsworth's Space Adventures Part 3, Hybrid Writing. For those of you who don't know, hybrid style is an original avant-garde writing style created by L.R. the Writer. The purpose of this style is to create stories that would appeal to visual learners, and its name is a reference to the fact that it combines traits of a novel and play together. In this book, you will find a definition for the hybrid writing style, a review of it, and the book cover. Part 4. The Story Summary. A quick overview of the plot. Let's take this seriously. The Story of the Spirit Eagles is an ensemble slice of life and sport series that follows the lives of a female university soccer team named the Spirit Eagles from Green Hill University in Miami, Florida, as they manage life on and off the soccer field while trying to rebuild Green Hill University's reputation regarding women's soccer and understand how committed each of them are to the sport of soccer, despite most of them not wanting to become professional soccer players. The story's main topics includes understanding what it means to put your all into something, even if it's not connected to your career or main passion, the element of sacrifice when it comes to being a team player, and analyzing the idea that sports such as soccer can do more than just create professional players. Part 5. Starting a Story, Rule 1. Getting into the story, we're first going to skip over the prologue for now and get into the main content. So, when you start writing a story in the hybrid style, the first thing you do concerning the main content is write the information for the first chapter, which is broken up into Category 1, made of named Section A to C, and Category 2, made of Section D to I. For Section A, you'll write the word chapter and the number associated with that chapter, or you can choose to write an alternative word to the word chapter that correlates to the story's content. For example, in this story, since it centers around soccer, the word chapter is substituted for game. Section B is where the name of the chapter goes, if there is a name. If the story you write has no chapter titles, then you will just write the series title followed by the word book and the number which correlates to which book in the series your story is in. Finally, for Section C, you write the date that will correlate to the date that the first standard perspective in a chapter takes place on. As a side note, the date will always be written as the month, the day in numerical form, with ordinals like written in regular size, and finally, the year in numerical form. Part 6. Starting a perspective, Rule 2. In hybrid style, the story itself is broken up into hybrid perspectives, which are narrations done in the hybrid style by the characters and/or a narrator. There are two main types of hybrid perspectives. The first is standard perspectives, which is any narration that is done that describes events happening in real time within the world of the story. The second is unique perspectives, which is any narration that takes place is a dream, flashback, flash forward, or hallucination. For now, we will only be talking about standard perspectives, which have 6 basic categories that are D to I. The D section is always at the top of a perspective and is either for the narrator or the name character that will be narrating the story. If a character's name is placed in this section, an author can also add the character's title to the left or right. In the case of this example, the character's left title is Coach, and their right title is Blizzard Wind. Left titles will always be reserved for a character's most valuable title, such as King or Queen. If a left title is very long, an author can abbreviate it into the first letters and surround it with brackets. For example, an author can abbreviate Vice Captain into VC surrounded by round brackets. Right titles are reserved specifically for a character's second most valuable title, and in most cases, they will be written in round brackets. There are only 2 exceptions to this. The first is when a character has a nickname that is already written in square brackets in the story. The second is when a character is being possessed. The first name of their possessor will be written in brace brackets when the possessor is narrating the story. As a side note, a character is only allowed to have 1 right and 1 left title, and many right titles are often unique titles and nicknames. The E section is for the chapter a perspective takes place in. If a perspective takes place on a prologue or epilogue, then you will just write the word book and the number which correlates to which book in a series your story is in. The F section correlates to the location in each perspective. In most occasions, the information in that section will start off with the words, the sky, the country, or the ocean the character is on. If a character is in space, then you would either first write space or the galaxy therein, and if a character is on an alien planet, then you write the planet's name. An author will only include a name continent in Section F if there is no country to be placed there. Section I is for the time of the day the perspective starts of on. For noon and midnight, they will always be written in their word form. If the time is a single number, then it will be no space between the number and the AM and PM. For example, 6 p.m. will always be written as 6 no space and then PM. Times that have 3 numbers will always be written with S space between the AM and PM. For example, 7:05 p.m. will always be written with a space between the 5 and PM. Using section, I and author will convey when standard perspectives are happening simultaneously and at different times. As a side note, standard perspectives in hybrid style will always be written in chronological order based on the time they take place. Concerning section G and H, the reason they have been skipped is because in most perspectives they won't appear. Section H is reserved for if a date is needed in a perspective. This section will only and always appear in unique perspectives, as well as in the first perspective in the prologue and epilogue of a story. As a side note, if an author wants to conceal information in sections C, F, H, and/or I, Then they can write the word associated with the section followed by a colon and a triple question mark. For example, in section F, which correlates to a character's location, if an author doesn't want readers to know a character's location in a specific perspective, they can write location, colon, and triple question mark instead. So, to summarize section, A is for the chapter's associated number. B is for the chapter's name in Category 1. C is for the chapter's starting date. D is for a character's name. E is for the chapter's name in Category 2. F is for the starting location for a character's perspective. G is for timers like the end of a competition. H is for if a date is needed in a perspective. And finally, section I is for the starting time in a perspective. Part 7. Prologue and Epilogues, Rule 3. We're now going to backpedal to the prologue section. So, in hybrid style, if you want to write a prologue and/or an epilogue on the first line, you'll write at the top center of the page the franchise name of the book, and on the second line you'll write the word book and the number which correlates to which book in a series your story is in. Now, with this perspective in the prologue, it has a few unique elements. The first unique element is the book 1 prologue. For all perspectives that take place on a prologue and epilogue, section E will always be written using the word prologue and epilogue followed by the number which correlates to which book in a series your story is in. Part 8. Hiding character's identity, Rule 4. The second unique element is 1 and triple question at the top. So, in hybrid style, if an author wishes to conceal a character's identity, there are two methods they can choose from. The first method, which is done in this perspective, is called complete camouflage, which is when an author writes a number in round brackets followed by a triple question mark. This is done to keep track of multiple characters with identities author wishes to be hidden. In this case, since the character was the first character to have the identify concealed by author, the number, they get the number 1 in bracket to the left of the triplet question mark. As a side note, in every sequel in a book series, this list of complete camouflage characters resets and numbers are given out based on the order characters are first introduced in each sequel. The second method is called halved camouflage, which is when an author writes a character's first name followed by the triple question mark, which is done to give readers a hint to a new character. Part 9. Vertical bars, Rule 5. The third unique element in this perspective is the use of vertical bars. So, in hybrid style, vertical bars are used to display when a word or word has been abbreviated the first time. When vertical bars show up the first time with a new abbreviation, they are bolded and sometimes colored in, so a reader will be able to easily recognize them. Vertical bars are often used in hybrid style to avoid information in section F for locations from being too long. As a side note concerning section F in all perspectives, the last location in that section will never be abbreviated. When the word that an author wishes to abbreviate first appears, they'll write the abbreviation in vertical bars to the left of the word. Concerning vertical bars abbreviations, if they are made of a single word, then they'll be abbreviated to either the first letter of the word capitalized or the first letter of the word capitalized followed by the second and/or lower case letter. Numbers and ordinals like will be left alone and be combined with words that have been abbreviated. A word or words has a common abbreviation, then it can be used in a story. Some examples of unique vertical bar abbreviation includes Mount Everest being abbreviated to capital M, lowercase t, dot, a space, and then capital E. First floor being abbreviated to first followed by a capital F with no spaces. Part 10, round brackets, Rule 6. So now we will be getting into the actual story. The first thing to note in this opening scene is the word crying in round brackets. So, in hybrid style, round brackets have many different functions. 3 of the most common uses for round brackets are being used in section D for a character's left title, when dialogue is spoken from sources such as phones, TV, and radios, as well as highlight specific types of story actions, which is any physical action that a character can do within a story. More on that later in the video. Part 11. Division lines. Rule 7. After the round brackets, we have the division lines, which are the two underscores next to the exclamation mark. Division lines have a variety of uses in hybrid style. The most common uses for division lines is to show when dialogue has been abruptly paused or has been broken up due to narration between it. Other uses for division lines include showing when a word or words have been censored, a syllable in a word is being dragged out, a character's dialogue has been abruptly cut off. An introduction section of a list needs to be repeated. As a side note, if a character says something at the end of and the beginning of a new chapter and/or perspective, an author does not use division lines. All division lines are isolated to the perspective they are in. Part 12. Numbers, Rule 8. Next, we will be talking about numbers. To save on space and make numbers easier to identify, they in most cases will be written using pure numerical form or mix of numerical and word form. The pure word form is only used in special circumstances, such as if a character's title has the word form of a number in it, and if an author needs to write noon and/or midnight. If a story has a 000 that are connected to each other and appears like 000 or 000, an author will replace it with the letter K, which is short for kilo, meaning thousand in Greek, or they will substitute the 000 for the word thousand. For example, 100, 000,000, it can be written as either as 100 plus double KK or the number 1 and the word form of a million. Part 13. Tables, Rule 9. If a table is needed in a story, an author will write table in round brackets at the end of the table's main title. If a table takes at least half the page, then it will be given its own page with any exposition that goes with it. If information in a table needs to be abbreviated, an author can add a legend at the bottom of the table. Abbreviations in a table's legend are exclusive to the table. Part 14. Square brackets, Rule 10. Before we move on, you can see on this table that the number 14 in the nickname section is in square brackets. In hybrid style, square brackets are used to show when a character is referred to by a name that is either a nickname, a code name, or unique name, such as a name that is a single letter or a numerical number. The use of square brackets is dependent on what a writer thinks is necessary to help readers easily identify a character's name. The only exception to this rule is names that are made from a numerical number, symbols, single letters, or letters that do not form real words and are less than 4 letters will always be given square brackets. The first time a name is written using square brackets outside exposition like tables in a story, it will be bold along with the information connected to it. Part 15. Communication, Rule 11. When it comes to communication like phone calls, there are 2 methods on how to handle them. The first method is called primary hybrid communication, in which 2 characters are talking on a device like a phone, and an author will write the word phone in round brackets before each of their dialogue. The second method is called secondary hybrid communication, which is when a character puts a device like a phone on speaker mode. With this method, an author will write phone/speaker in round brackets before the dialogue of the character that is not physically in the scene. Part 16. Censored Information, Rule 12. We'll now go over how to censor information. There are 3 methods to do it. First is complete bracket censorship, which is when a word or words is completely censored by having them substituted for round brackets around the word censored. The second is single-letter censorship, which is when a word or words is censored by an author only writing the first letter of the censored word, followed by a division line. The third is pure division censorship, which is when a word or words is censored by having them substituted for a single division line. Part 17. Story Actions, Rule 13. Now we will go into depth about story actions. Just as a reminder, a story action is any physical action that a character can do within a story, and there are 3 types which are prominent, standard, and basic. Basic actions are any action that is not surrounded by round brackets. Standard actions are any action that is surrounded by round brackets that does not require an author to show when the action is over. Unlike prominent actions, there's some actions where an author can choose when they do and don't want to include them in each scene in a story. The last type is prominent actions, which are a specific type of action in a story that is characterized by an author highlighting when the action started and ended using round brackets. For example, if an author wants to display a character is reading something, they'll put the word reading in round brackets to start, write what the character is reading, then write end of reading in round brackets. There are two types of prominent actions. The first is pure prominent actions, which are simple actions including typing, writing, reading, singing, and communication methods like phone calls. The second is combined prominent actions, which combines a pure prominent action with another action using a slash and putting them both within round brackets. As you can see on this page, the word phone is in round brackets, meaning a character is talking on the phone. On the next page, the word phone in round brackets is replaced with phone/speaker in round brackets. On the following page, you see end of phone call in round brackets, meaning this was a prominent action. As a side note, communication is the only prominent action where you add an extra word at the end, which in this case is the word call. Part 18, Symbols, Rule 14. Concerning symbols, if a word has a symbol counterpart like dollar and percentage, it will be used in a story unless it is necessary in a story for the word counterpart to be used instead. One example of symbols can be seen here with 110%. Part 19. Changing the date, Rule 15. As a reminder, the date will always be written as the month, the day in numerical form with ordinals like written in regular size, and finally the year in numerical form. Date changes can happen between narration, dialogue, perspectives, or chapters. Date changes that don't occur during a new chapter will always be between top and bottom spaces, so it can be immediately noticed to a reader. These date changes will always be aligned to the left and be bold. If a character's perspective goes on to the next day or days, then an author will simply write the date and then continue the perspective. Part 20. Unique Perspectives, Rule 16. A unique perspective is any kind of perspective that does not take place in the present timeline of a story. There are 4 types of unique perspectives, including dreams, flashbacks, hallucinations, and flash-forwards. Each type of unique perspective is given their own separate perspective, which are categorized by having a colon and the word dream, flashback, hallucination, or flash-forwards at the end of the first line of a new perspective. If an author wants to hide the fact a scene is one of the 4 types of unique perspective, they can add a colon followed by a triple question mark. Part 21. Simultaneous Speaking, Rule 17. The less and greater signs are used together to show when 2 or more characters are talking simultaneously. In hybrid style, the less and greater signs together are known as the paradox signs. The paradox signs can also be used with words like crowd and audience to convey when random people talk from within a group. Brace brackets can also be combined with the paradox signs to convey when 2 or more characters are talking simultaneously while controlling the same body. Audience. If 2 or more characters say different things at the same time, an author will put the characters' names in the paradox signs separately, with one being on top of the other in any order as if they were talking normally. The author will then write the characters' dialogue next to their name in the paradox signs. Part 22. Isolated Exposition, Rule 18. Isolated exposition is a term that describes when a character does a prominent action like writing, singing, and reading that does not fit into regular novel dialogue, such as when a character sings, writes a song, or reads poetry. When isolated exposition is used in a story, an author will write the character's name and what the character is doing in bold and in round brackets before the isolated exposition. At the end, when the isolated exposition is finished, an author will write the word's end of, as well as the character's name, and what the character is doing in bold and in round brackets. Part 23, Connected Exposition, Rule 19. When wanting to add extra information, an author can use connected exposition, which are bullet points that either start with note, meaning information related to the story; extra, meaning information in a guidebook; fact, meaning information that is from the world real that is related to the story; example, meaning an example that is linked to a note, extra, or fact. Part 24, Brace brackets, Rule 20. Brace brackets convey when a character is possessed by another character or characters. As a side note, in hybrid style, someone who is being possessed by at least one person is called a possessed target. When writing a possessed target's dialogue, an author will put the name of the possessor in brace brackets every time before their target's dialogue. When writing the perspective of a possessor in Section D, an author will put the possessed target's name and then put possessor's name in brace brackets to the left of a possessed character. The possessor's name will be treated as the possessed target's left title. When writing the perspective of a possessed target in Section D, an author will write the information how they would do it normally, as if the character is not a possessed target. Part 25, The Narrator, Rule 21. A character's narration can be substituted by a narrator. A narrator's perspective will always start with the narrator with a capital T and N. If a narrator is used for a specific scene, an author will write the location and time of that scene. If a narrator is not used for a specific scene, an author will write triple question mark to the left of the location and time in Section H and I. If the narrator of a story has a name, the words "the narrator" will be written in square brackets as their left title, and when it comes to stories with multiple unnamed narrators, an author will label them with a number in square brackets to the left of the words "the narrator." Part 26, Foreign Languages, Rule 22. If a character or text has to be written in another language, an author will provide a translation under the text, unless not knowing the text is vital to the story. Translations for foreign text will always appear below the foreign text. It will have a bullet point attached to it, as well as be written as a character's name followed by the title of the foreign language they spoke, the word "to," the title of the language the dialogue has been converted into, followed by a colon, and then the translated text. The translated text will copy all aspects of the foreign text except the translated text will always have double quotations at the beginning and end, even if the foreign text has division lines attached to it. Part 27, Dialogue from Non-Direct Sources, Rule 23. If a character hears dialogue through sources such as TV, radio, or a phone, an author will put in round brackets how a character or characters are hearing the dialogue before they hear it. In this scene, the characters are hearing dialogue from a smartphone, which means an author will write the word "smartphone" in round brackets before the dialogue from the smartphone is heard by the characters. As a side note, dialogue from non-direct sources is the only time in hybrid style an author will write "smartphone" instead of "phone" in round brackets. Part 28, Games, Rule 24. One of the rules of the hybrid style that is not seen in this book is the use of games such as board games. If a game is played and it is essential for a reader to know the moves of each play, then an author will bullet point each action between narration and dialogue. The bullet points are called game actions, and they are structured as the name of the character who did the action, the word "turn," the number the action correlates to in the game, as well as a colon next to the action. Part 29, Speaking in the Hybrid Style, Rule 25. For the next section, I'll be going over the hybrid voice list, which is the list of rules a person follows when reading a story in the hybrid style. Some examples of rules on the hybrid voice list include: Rule 1, Complete Camouflage. You will say the word "unknown," followed by the number in Section D, such as 1. Rule 2, Brace Brackets. You only say the information inside the brace brackets. Rule 3, Halved. Camouflage. You will say the word "unknown," followed by the name in Section D. Rule 4, The paradox signs. You will say the word together, followed by the information within the paradox signs. Rule 5. Square brackets. You only say the information inside the square brackets. Rule 6. The narrator. You only say the words, the narrator's perspective. Rule 7. Round brackets. You only say the information inside the round brackets. Rule 8. Vertical bar. Abbreviations. You ignore the vertical bars and say the word to the right of the first vertical bar, followed by its abbreviated version. Rule 9. Standard actions. You only say the information inside the brackets. Rule 10. Section E. Information in Section E, which is the chapter's title within Category 2, will never be spoken. Rule 11. Prominent actions. You only say the information inside the brackets. Rule 12. Tables. You say the word table, followed by the title or titles of the table, and any information right under the table that is not in the table's columns. Rule 13. Isolated exposition. You will say isolated exposition followed by the information within round brackets before the isolated exposition. You then say the isolated exposition, and finally you say the information within round brackets after the isolated exposition. Rule 14. Foreign languages. You only say the information that comes before the colon in the translation. For example, Jessica French to English translation. Rule 15. Complete bracket censorship. You ignore the word censored in brackets and then move on to the next word. Rule 16. Single letter censorship. You ignore the division line as well as the letter touching it to the right, and you then move on to the next word. Rule 17. Pure division censorship. You ignore the division line and then move on to the next word. Rule 18. Division lines. Rule 19. Multiple narrators. You say the narrator followed by the number next to their name. Rule 20. Second person. You apply the rules for the narrator to this rule but replace the word narrator with reader. They are never spoken. Part 30. Let's take this seriously. The extract. For the second to last section, I'll be demonstrating some of the rules on the hybrid voice list by reading the first two scenes of Let's Take This Seriously, Book 1. Now, let's begin. Let's Take This Seriously. Book 1. Prologue. Unknown 1. The United States of America, USA, Florida FL, Miami. My Green Hill University GHU, Park Area. January 18th, 2028, 9:30 p.m. Just when I thought this day couldn't get any worse, I find myself running out of my dorm, crying and fleeing the scene. The only thing on my mind right now was trying to locate Duchess as fast as possible. Crying. "Duchess!" I yelled. "Duchess, where are you?" After about 10 minutes of searching, I finally took a break under a tree. I sat down, hugged my knees, put my back to the tree, and attempted to wipe my tears dry. With night falling and the tree's shadow, I felt like I had vanished from sight. With all classes done for the day, the campus had become a ghost town. Wiping tears. "Stupid," I barked. "I knew this would happen. What am I even doing here? Why did I even come here?" I had to pause, beating myself into the dirt with words as a soccer ball suddenly rolled up next to me. As I looked up, I noticed a woman in a coach's uniform approach me. From the looks of this woman, she appeared dead serious. "Sorry about that." The woman spoke as she approached me and picked up her soccer ball. "The ball got caught in the wind. Hope I wasn't interrupting anything." Since I was in no mood to have company, I put my head down and tried to tell this woman to take a hike. "No, you didn't," I claimed. "You can leave now." "You sure about that?" the woman interrogated. "Looks to me you're not in the best state. You know, even though there are cameras everywhere, that doesn't mean it's safe to be out on campus late at night. So are you planning on heading to one of the dorms or leaving the campus?" And so it seemed I was cornered and had to come clean. "I'm not going to leave the campus," I claimed. "And I can't go back to my dorm." "Why not?" the woman questioned. "I just had a fight with my roommate, Katie Harper," I answered. "You see, I found a kitty that was abandoned, and I took it back to my dorm to take care of it. However, once Katie discovered it, she scolded me for bringing in a cat without anyone's permission, and the kitty I named Duchess got scared, ran off, and outside of the dorm, Since Duchess was so small, I was scared that I wouldn't be able to find her before something bad happened. Me and Katie ended up arguing, I continued, and she started calling me a feral beast. Luckily, the girls that lived next to us came into the room and intervened before our fight turned physical. After Katie told me I wasn't fit to live with humans, I ran off. Now that I explained my story, all I could do is see how this woman acted. "Well, that's uncalled for," the woman protested. "You don't look or act like a feral beast to me. You look like a girl with a lot of heart just trying to fit in as best she could despite her past." The woman presented me with the soccer ball for reasons I couldn't yet understand. "Tell you what, Miss Maritime," the woman added. "Let's make a deal. I'll help you deal with your roommate, find your cat, and I'll also use this soccer ball to help you fit in. In return, you help me maintain this university's winning streak. What do you say?" Of all the things this woman had mentioned, I couldn't help but notice one odd element. "Maritime?" I questioned. "Wait, how do you know my last name?" "Long story short," the woman commented, "I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. Remember a week ago when you were walking by the soccer field and used your natural skills to stop a soccer ball from hitting someone and then firing it back? Despite the short time frame, that whole event was basically lost in my memory until this woman brought it up." "Maritime," the woman continued. "I don't want you to waste your skills, so I want you to help me help you to prove to the world you're not a feral beast. I'm not asking you to go pro, but I am asking you to take this seriously. What do you say?" Originally, I came to this university not knowing what to major in. All I knew is I wanted to find a place where I belong, as a former feral child that was found abandoned deep in the wilderness of Florida and who lost her parents. I don't have many options compared to other people. Without a clear future, and in my current state, it wasn't that difficult for me to be convinced that this ball might change my life. "But I don't know how to play soccer," I informed. For the first time since I met this woman, she managed to crack a smile. "That's fine," the woman assured. "To me, teaching soccer is child's play. It's when trying to create a serious or professional player that it becomes a challenge. By the way, call me Coach Charlotte Lincoln." Game 1, The Life of Soccer Stars, October 7th, 2032. Coach Sarah Jane Maritime, Blizzard Wind, USA, Florida, My, GHU, Sports Building SB, Sarah Jane's office, 6 p.m. Before I could retire for the night, I first had to take the time to look at the A-team roster, as well as all my chess pieces I had lined up on the soccer field diagram on my marker board. Thankfully, I had my loyal companion by my side, which is my pet Turkish van cat named Duchess. Table Spirit Eagles, the A-team roster. Now that I set up my pieces into their first position, I imagine how a game would play out with all these pieces in my latest method of attack, which made me smile. "What an elegant game plan," I rejoiced. "Don't you think so, Duchess?" Duchess takes a moment to look at my diagram. She then stares at me and meows. In my mind, I interpret it as her asking, "Are you ever going to use different titles for the positions?" Due to the positions of soccer being able to be divided into multiple specific sections, there was more than one way to hand out positions on a team. "Oh, come on, Duchess," I requested. "You should know me better than that. I prefer dividing the positions in 4 main categories instead of using fancy titles like sweeper and winger. When I played soccer for Greenhill University, I didn't want to be a center forward. I just wanted to be a forward who was focused on helping her team get a goal." To this day, I can imagine the adrenaline rush that came from charging at my enemies with other forwards, while the midfielders, defenders, and the goalie of my team are behind me, ready to act. "These vague positions," I explained, "gives more freedom to my team, which allows them to interpret how to make the most of their positions and create their own unique position. Don't you think that's a lot more thrilling than a coach handing a position like a sweeper that comes with a specific set of rules?" Already, Duchess waved the white flag of defeat by lifting her left palm and then planting it quickly on the ground. "Glad to know we agree." I cheered. Now all that's left to do is put this new plan into action. I had to pause my conversation with Duchess there as I got a call from the assistant coach, Willow Carter. Phone, talk to me, I requested. Phone. I'm heading home, Willow informed. I trust you can handle the rest of today's work without me. Even though Willow knew what I was going to say, she still insisted on asking me. Phone. Don't worry, Willow, I assured. I got everything under control. I got a new game plan all set and ready to put into place. To give my arm a break, I placed my phone on my desk and set it on speaker. Phone/speaker. And what about the team? Willow interrogated. The A-team hasn't been together since that incident after our last loss. Before replying, I decided to collapse in my chair and put my feet on my desk. Oh, that, I teased. I haven't talked to any members of the A-team since the incident. I wanted to give each of them their space. The last thing the team needs is to think we're trying to put words in each of their mouths. Despite our polar opposite personalities, me and Willow did have an idea of how the other thinks. Phone/speaker. True, Willow agreed. But still, I'm starting to question if it's about time we cut someone from the team to avoid this issue again. Sarah Jane, you know more than anyone that this team you put together is quite the handful. Most of the girls on the A-team aren't even considering going pro. As Willow explained her argument, Duchess leaped into my lap and I began to rub her head. And that's a problem? I challenged. Willow, I think you're thinking too small. Our jobs as coaches are more than just trying to make professional athletes. Our first priority as teachers is to mold the minds of our students so they can become better people. Phone/speaker. I know, Willow assured. It's just we can't ignore the elephant in the room. The university's female soccer team hasn't had the best track record in the past couple years. It's gotten to the point where the current president asked you to come back to campus so you could help the university redeem itself. As Willow reminded me of my mission, I looked up at the mammoth-size framed photo of me from my youth playing soccer as a spirit eagle with the number 0 on my uniform. Under the photo, there was a caption. Within that caption, I focus on 2 specific words which are blizzard wind. The university's current president, Willow continued, has given you a lot of freedom to make this new team what you want it to be. Judging from who you have chosen as the starting lineup, it's obvious you really took a gamble with this team. It's like you created the living definition of a crazy concoction. Following the end of Willow's claims, I decided to have some fun by firing a rubber dart at a board on the wall. That is the idea, I explained. Willow, you need to keep this in mind. The reason I love soccer is because its basic formula and lack of fancy tools makes it, in my opinion, the ideal sport for new athletes to try out. The sport is so ideal from my point of view that I believe even a team mostly made of players who see no future at a professional level could succeed and become champions. I paused for a moment to take a sip of my tea and reflect on when I first started out playing soccer. When I was on the field, I continued. With my old team, it didn't matter to us which career path we were heading down, because when we're playing, we had the same focus, which was to win, make all our supporters proud, and take soccer seriously. That level of unity is something I fear has died off on this campus, and it's only right that someone brings that ideal back to life. Although Willow didn't agree with all of my ideals, she was at least willing to hear me out and test them to see if I was right. Sarah Jane, Willow warned, you better pray you resurrect this ideal from the dead, because your reputation, like many others, are on the line. I'll see you in the morning. End of phone call. Anne, so Willow ended the call, leaving me to let her warning sink in. Deep breath. Son of a, I commented. Duchess, we really have our work cut out for us. We have to deal with making Queen Bee, Elephant Tank, Miss Universe, the General, the Mysterious Playmaker, Featherweight, Golden Goose, the Crown, 14, Heart Skipper, Lady Wolf, and all members of the Bee team into a successful team. This is quite the task. You think we can pull it off? Duchess let out a yawn, revealing her fangs, then jumped out of my lap and started to rub my leg. From those actions, I translated it to, I'm ready for battle, and I'm here for you. That's what I like to hear, I added. Guess all we can do now is try and give 110%. Part 31, Novel Series, written in the hybrid style. To end, we'll be going over all novel series currently written in the hybrid style, excluding Let's Take This Seriously. If you wish to read any of these series, they're all available on Amazon.com. The first series is Victoria, the Fifth Night, The Path to Peace. The second series is Snow Warriors, The Grand Adventures Begin, which is a spin-off series of Victoria, the Fifth Night. The third series is A Villain's Motivation, The Revolution of Bloodstone. The fourth series is The Wrong Group of Girls, The Adventures on Earth. The fifth series is A Shard of Hope, A Hero's Origin, Excalibur. The Tale of a Modern-Day Warrior is the sixth series. The seventh series is A World of Sin, The Game Begins. The eighth series is Destroyers 9, The War for the World. Live Evil. The Death Sentence arc is the ninth series. After that, we have our Method to Kill of the Gods, The Devil's Reawakening, which is the 10th series. And finally, we have A True Assassin School's in Session, which is the 11th on the list.